Uh, that's that's weird. Let's see.
This meeting is being recorded.
Let me try it again.
Yes, please.
Okay, you are screen sharing. What can you see?
Oh, I see your screen. The house, the classroom.
So did you see this? Did you see this one?
That's the first one I saw initially. Yeah.
Okay, so you saw that one. Okay, so this was the classroom in Imazama Year 2. Very small, it's a very tight little project. From here, we went into this is a project we did in Betty's Bay, which is like a holiday area outside of Cape Town for a client who was obviously interested in building with sand. We designed the structure. Unfortunately, they wanted plaster inside and out, so there's lots of cement everywhere, which was not what we were trying to advocate for. We like different types of material, cladding wise. But it was an important project because we, i.e. informal areas and formal areas that live in, for instance, informal areas, that this is something that everyone uses. This is a technology that everyone gets to use. So this was a very simple 130 square meters, one garage, 3 bedrooms. The idea being that whichever room you're in, you can watch the mountain and the sea at the same time. But it was a very beautiful build. This one is Fisher Haven. This is also outside of Cape Town. And the nuance of this project is that this was more done by the client. It was more of a self-build. One of the things we love about Sandbags is that it's a very simple technology to use. And we have a lot of clients who come for our day training. So we offer a one-day in-person training. And you can come, and there have been many people actually who have gone away and said, well, I can do this. Just just give me a little bit of help. And then we give them a little bit of help. We manufacture the sandbags and the beams, and then the humans do it for themselves. So that's no sound. It says no sound. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We can hear you
Yes.
perfectly.
I can hear you. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. I just saw a note saying no sound. And so this was, and the interesting thing about this one, it was at a time where we weren't in a factory. And so what we did was we gave the lattice, the steel lattice to the client, and they built their eco beams on site, adjacent to the site. So that was actually quite cool. This is just a little project we did finish last year, which is a double-story ECD, an early childhood development center in Khayelitsha. It's the first time we've gone formally double-story. And the very cool thing about this project is that we tried to enter the project with a very small team. And the idea being that you try and activate the humans on the street. So Mama, this is Mama Nakwanda. You can see she runs the ECD, and basically she knows all the people on the street. So we were trying to say, well, hold on, how do we activate, invite people to the table, and so that this becomes more of a community effort. And so the bags were filled by the mamas whose children go to the ECD. The plastering was done by a local artisan who lives on the street. The labor was done by those who lived on the street. So it became a community project. It became essentially what we always try and talk about is a place of belonging. How do we create places of belonging in a context like Cape Town? So in different places, Misiru, when I came there, didn't feel like a very unwelcoming place, but sometimes Cape Town can be quite unwelcoming. And so how do we create places of belonging? So that's the notional idea. Let's talk about something.
Can I?
Yes, Sarah.
Can I ask you, you mentioned you did that in a small team. What does small mean, or how many people were then involved?
So we would take in, we had 3 guys. So there'd be a site manager and 2 others. And just to do oversight and overseeing things. So what we're trying not to do is be the whole team that comes in and builds for someone and then leave. And obviously with a small team, sometimes someone is sick and all that sort of stuff, so when it becomes smaller. Sorry. How do I switch this off? This is annoying. Okay, apologies for that. And so yeah, so that's the type of dynamic that we were trying to do, just to try and keep it tight. And if you've got like 2 or 3 guys, then it's very easy for the people on the street to know who you are. And that's quite a critical dynamic.
All right. Thanks
I
for.
don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's fine. Thanks for the insight. Yeah, that is pretty
no,
small. Yeah.
I love the fact that you asked the question. If anyone else has questions, they must also ask. So here's a sort of a page of attributes. Normally, with a big crowd, we try and encourage people to think about what they're looking at in terms of the attributes. But if you can see my little pointer, I'm going to just go through them quickly. Ooh. So the one at the bottom here is incremental. You can go from single to double story. We don't advocate 3 stories, but we do advocate for incrementalism. This one here is because of the mass of sand, it keeps it very warm in winter and very cool in summer. The temperature change can be up to sort of 8 degrees. This one here it's more eco-friendly. We're trying to reduce the amount of concrete we use and cement. We do still use cement, but obviously we're trying to reduce it. This one here is bulletproof. When we go to war, we sit behind sandbags. This one here is everyone gets to build. So our last slide is basically a young lady who built with us, and she was very young. She was in fact 5 years old. This one here is fireproof. You cannot burn sand. In fact, there was a fire in Masiru on the site, on the school site when we were there, and we used sandbags to put the fire out, because that's what you put the fire out, with sand. And when the building does burn, it basically makes the sand stronger. It makes the bricks stronger. This one here is my most interesting. Well, this one here is about cost. So if we compare it to double skin brickwork, so we compare it to sort of Lani, expensive houses in the suburbs, which are coming in at about 15,000 rand a square meter at the moment. We can definitely build for less than 10, even a sort of quite an expensive house. So it's probably about 40% cheaper than that, than conventional double skin brick. This one here is my favorite attribute, and that is, it doesn't matter if it's clad in zinc. It doesn't matter if it's plastered. Basically, wherever you are in the city, you get the same technology. You get the same attributes of the technology. So we've built, obviously, with zinc in informal communities, and we've built with plaster and other cladding systems. It doesn't matter what it is, you get the same technology. In fact, this is what happens when you burn sand. Yes.
Can I quickly also ask something else? Could you also say it's waterproof? Or like we build dams with sandbags, so would it be protecting against water?
Well,
or does
it's
it
not.
Depend on the fundament?
It isn't waterproof in as much that it keeps the water out. In fact, it's porous. So, and the key characteristic is that it's porous. So you'd have a cladding system, or you'd have a skin. So you'd either have a plaster skin, or you'd have a cladding system. That's the thing that keeps the water out. If moisture and water get into the wall, what we want is for it to just flow through the wall. And so what we know is that the bags that we use, and we know that sand doesn't hold water. And that's a very critical detail, because you don't want it to hold water. So if there's clay, we say don't use it. We don't like cement in the bags, because cement sucks moisture and water. So any moisture that comes in flows down the wall, and then we work out a way of allowing it to escape at the bottom.
Okay.
So it's not what sand is not waterproof. It allows water in, but the other key detail though is that when we pack the bags, it's solid. And the reason why it's solid is because it's wet, or it's moist. So that when you smash the bags with a paddle and you try and create flat edges, the sand must be moist. So there must be moisture in there. So we know that in time, when you pack and you finish packing the bag, that it's going to keep in the position which is packed, and then it's going to dry out, and it's going to dry out in the form that it was packed. So that's one of the key details, is that it can't hold that water. So yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I was just thinking about, like, the water protection, or when there's like floodings, that we would also use kind of sandbags to keep it out
Yes,
of the houses.
exactly. But then you have to ask yourself, what's the material of that bag?
Yeah.
So then
Alright.
the attribute of sand is that it's heavy, it's accessible, and you can use it and all that sort of stuff. But then my thinking probably in that regard then is that the bag is probably impervious. Do you know what I mean? It's like a plastic bag.
Yeah.
That doesn't allow the water through. Otherwise, it defeats the object.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool.
I like the
Thank you
question.
for this. You are not alone here, so.
Okay, it's very important that I'm not speaking to no one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, we're all listening, very, very thrilled.
Good.
Thank you.
We fall under something called Agrimol, and we have a certificate called 2011-398. It's a 28-page document which goes through some of the details of some of the things that we have to adhere to. Anything that's outside of SABS, which is the South African Building Standards, anything that's outside of convention has to fall within Agrimol, which means testing and multiple ways of getting assessed. So we have to get assessed every year, which means your manufacturing has to be assessed and all that sort of stuff. So this is a very important document, and within that document we have sort of details like this. This is gives you an idea of sort of a generic foundation that we like to use. And you can see at the bottom here we have a conventional concrete pour, and then we will build a maxi brick plinth, like you can see on the outside here on the image. That is just simple concrete bricks, and inside you'll pour concrete and it becomes a plinth. Now the idea is that that plinth stops at 150 mil above external ground level, and then we will put our frame directly on top of that concrete plinth. Now, as I say, we do a training day, so this is not a training webinar. This is just sort of generic stuff, but this is just gives you an idea of some of the things we think about. Sandbags in an eco beam frame, plastered inside and out, or we have a cladding system, and at the top of the wall we will put a concrete ring beam, which is something that we've introduced beyond the certificate. You can see a couple of generic details going on here, where every 6 meters, our longest wall is 6 meters, and every time you go beyond 6 meters, the engineer would prefer to have a concrete column. And every corner we like to put in a concrete column. And you can see in this drawing here how we do that. So you've got sandbags coming up against one side, sandbags against another side, and then if you have a cladding system, in this instance it's zinc, you then you've basically created an empty space, and it's quite nice, so that once you've filled your bags and you've put your cladding system in, you can then pour the concrete into the corner. So this last section, it is 1:30, and I'm trying to zip through. That was a very simple technical stuff, but this last section really is around how we are using sandbags to think about the context that we're building in, and to not sort of, I'm not interested in high-tech foreign things coming into communities. I'm very interested in what is it that's already here. So there's some certain indigenous practices that I think that we can adhere to, which I think provide good news for building home and belonging in the notional apartheid city. And these are some of the principles that we like to think about. So we like to use what we have. We want to make sure that everyone participates. We believe that certainly when we think about the informal community, which we call the zinc forest, there's always an incremental becoming. The things are always changing and becoming. We want to talk about spaces of dialogue, and also I'm going to finish off with an opportunity that we're looking at the moment through our own work here in Cape Town. What I'm not focusing on is a specific typology. Indigeneity is not about having a rondavel or something like that. That's not the definition of indigenous practice. But let's use what we have. So what do we have? So we were, for instance, in Cholocho recently, no, a couple of years ago, and we were able to build with a lovely group of people, and around us was sand. And this is on the edge of the Kalahari. In fact, I think it would be quite good at this moment to show you a video. I'm just going to stop that, and then I'm going to show, let me see if I can show a quick video. Bear with me.
Hi, Derry.
Can everyone see that?
Before you continue with the video,
Yes.
I just want to make sure that everyone else can hear you, because there's someone who said they cannot hear you. So I'm just trying to see if
Okay.
everyone can hear Barry. Please just say yes before we continue.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Anyone else? Only Sarah says she can hear. Anyone else?
I can hear him too.
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Tisetso, I want to see your face, please. There he is. There's my guy. How are you? Long time.
Good. All right. Okay. It seems like majority of the people say they can hear you. I can see Moragano also just said she can hear. All right. Thank you so much. You can continue, Barry.
Okay, cool. Let's see if this works. So that was an exciting project that we did in Zimbabwe, and we literally just encouraged humans. Why does it doesn't allow me to Let's try that again. Okay, screen sharing. And we would literally try to encourage them to use what they had. So they literally had these feedbacks that you can see on the screen there. And just making sure that everyone can read. And the sand literally was everywhere. And so we edited that bag. And we edited that bag and edited the system because they didn't have zinc or sort of lattice. They didn't have steel lattice. And so we used timber fillets. And the idea, the random thing is that the only timber they had was Meranti, which is crazy. It was very expensive timber, but that's what we had. So we edited the bigger bag. We made 2 bags from one, and everyone got involved. There were 60 people. Everyone got to participate. Everyone got to be involved. Everyone got to build, and it was an extraordinary experience. This is something that happened in Zimbabwe. It didn't happen. It hasn't yet happened in South Africa, which is still part of a key part of our vision. An incremental thing, an incremental becoming is, I think we're very, very keen on the idea of modeling incrementalism. How do we model change? How do we model something that can become something else? And I think I very quickly want to share this thing as well, which is only about 40 seconds long. But this gives you an idea of what we did in Sweet Home Farm. So this is incrementalism now in Sweet Home Farm in Philippi. That process took 2.5 years. We wanted to bleed the community in. This is so annoying when it pauses and it doesn't do it. I'm going to have to do it again. It's fine. That's better. That process was over 2.5 years. We wanted to, again, bleed engagement, bleed the conversation into with people from the community. We knew that zinc, corrugated iron, would be rejected. But when you combined sandbags with zinc, it became something different. It became understood. It became more accepted. And there was a very interesting moment when it's zinc on the outside, it's plaster on the inside. What is it now? Is it a shack or is it a house? So you play with the mid space and this is basically the project became a place of engagement. So this is just an image. We had a local symposium. International people from all over the world came for a symposium on alternative technologies. But it's how does our practice encourage continual dialogue? It's one of the key things of indigeneity. It's like, how do we carry on having a conversation? And so here's our opportunity. This is, it's 22, so I'm going to try and wrap it up very quickly. But in December, we got awarded a tender with the City of Cape Town for emergency housing using alternative building technologies. It's the first of its kind. It's taken a very long time to come through. We thought that we were going to get a tender in 2016, but they pulled it. We have been engaging with the City of Cape Town for 10 years. And it took that long for them to sort of get the hint that actually maybe alternative building technologies is the way forward. And now we want to use that to then go back into the community that we were in for 10 years. So within the community, this is SEER on a finished road. We facilitated a process called the UISP, which is the Upgrade of Informal Settlements Program. And the first phase of that was roads and drainage and all that sort of stuff. But the second phase was top structures. Now, sadly, in 2019, we had to leave because of gangs and guns and people dying. And it was very sad. We actually, that process house that you saw over 2.5 years was our HQ. We manufactured from that place, but we had to leave that place because of just because it became a bit dangerous. But now, because of the tender and because we've been away for a bit of time, we're now thinking about going back. Now, I don't know if you can see, but I'm pointing down to a small piece of land at the bottom there, which has become is an island site. And on that site, there are 60 shacks, and we're calling it Site X. And the proposition here is, how do we do all the things that we want to do? How do we do dialogue? How do we do engagement? How do we do co-design? How do we do building together or getting humans to build for themselves? How do we do incremental becomings? All of those things. And we want to model that now on this site, on Site X. So we've presented it to the City of Cape Town. They think that it might be possible. It's certainly never been done before. They're a little bit nervous, and there are other contractors as part of the tender that will be building on much more conventional sites. But we would like the opportunity to build adjacent to where people live. So we're going to fashion a small piece of a small space, and then we will look at building and bringing in this typology of 4 units. Then, yeah, we will then activate humans to build for themselves. And as they build the units, then the humans adjacent can then move into those units to make more space so that we can then build adjacent to that. So this is kind of the model that we're looking at, because within informal communities, within the zinc forest paradigm, there's no land to move anyone to. So we have to start building in that very difficult space whilst people live there. We also want to build where people have built community. So Sweet Home Farm has been there since 1996. So people have been there a long time. And so we don't want people to have to move because they have built social cognitive capital. So that's one of the things. And this is kind of what it looks like. So this is us building in Mshiniwa, in Joe Slovo. And the humans got involved. Everyone got involved. This is kind of the model that we want to test. So who wants to build? This is Karis Lily. She's 5 years old. Everyone gets to build. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that insight. Very.
Thank you so much, Barry. That was quite insightful. And I see you really tried to put it all inside 30 minutes.
I did my best.
I do have a few questions, but for now, I'll pass over to Disetso, who will then also share a bit of insight. Like I mentioned earlier, Disetso is part of a group of fellows or pioneers who worked on building a kitchen here in Lesotho, Maseru, using sandbags, and he has quite a hands-on experience, so he'll be sharing his insight. Over to you, Disetso. My name is Disetso. Can you hear me, everyone? Okay. I was in the as quiz introduced to me. We're in the 2022 cohort with my fellows. So now we are pioneers. So we engaged in building a sandbag house at Seboka at Hamatan, Seboka Primary School. So we didn't believe it, even us as well, that this is possible. Yeah, we were
we all graduates from Fogoti, and we were given the opportunity to practice. So we introduced that we're going to use a new methodology. Then we did build the house where there were 6 of us. Then buried to is that the sandbag is possible. We managed to house ourselves, graduate from the knowledge that we're given by parents. So everyone can go to Sibuka Primary School and go and see the house that we built. So after we built the whole project, we managed to start our the 6 of us. The 6 of us. So it is kind of difficult to introduce a new technology of a sandbag building in Lesotho because we all know a conventional building of building using bricks. So we've been struggling as a new company to try and convince people on how to build the. Can you hear me? Are there hiccups? Hmm.
If you can close the phone.
Are you two close together?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you need to maybe it's set. So if you just go through Chris's one, and then because I think it's coming through. If you've got two very close, it does that sometimes.
What about now? Can you hear me clearly? Okay, as we were saying that we managed to start our own business, which we are still going to introduce to Lesotho. So we managed to register our business. It is called New Millennium Construction Group. So now, as I was saying, the struggle is to introduce this new technology. So we are still hand in hand with Barry to try and monitor us and tutor us on how to handle the business because we've been struggling quite a lot. But there are improvements in us that we managed to start our business. We managed to win one of the innovative projects that we did enter. So now we are still trying to introduce our business, going on the competitions whereby we try to tell our business and introduce how our business is structured. So what I can say more is that it is possible, the sandbag building, just that we have to introduce it more in Lesotho. We just have to get tenders and try to build it. Yes, I think. Munyan, do you want to add? Yeah, so I think that's all.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Tiseto. We'll be moving to questions if there are any from the people on the from people who are listening. I'm getting some feedback. Apologies for that.
So just needs to turn his mic off.
All right. Yes, we're back now. I don't know, Barry. One of the questions I've been getting ever since we started making people aware that we'll be having this webinar, and the kind of discussion we'll be having was mainly about the cost. People are really curious to know how cost effective this kind of methodology is, this technology is. What can you say briefly about the cost?
Yeah, that's an important consideration. I think ultimately building is expensive, right? It's not, we're not making cupcakes, and it's expensive. So what we say is that we don't compare it. So we do compare it to other technologies. So we do compare it to double skin brick, certainly within the context of Cape Town. We don't compare it to RDP house, the government house, because we don't think that that is quality. We always say, why are we comparing technology where, you know, in very wealthy places that they use that technology to house horses? We shouldn't be talking about housing humans with the same technology. So that RDP house is probably coming in at about 4,000. So we can't build for 4,000 rand a square meter if you're talking about fully finished, but we are talking about less than 10. So we, you know, on a very expensive, on a sort of more expensive property, you're probably looking at about 8,000 or 9,000. The ECD was our most expensive build, and that was about 10.5. But that's because we needed things like a fire floor. It was also double story. We needed special we needed extinguishers and all of that sort of stuff. So, and fire doors, and so that was a different specification. One thing that I would say, so we can certainly build for less than 10. I think we could probably build it, depending on the quality of the finishes and things, you could probably build for about 6 or 7. But at the same time, we talk about incrementalism. And we have built for a lady in Vanguard Estate here in Cape Town, where she said, I don't have that type of money. Can we build a sort of a shack that can become something? So for about 1,000 or 2,000 rand a square meter, we built a skeleton shack, which is an eco beam shack with zinc cladding, zinc roof, a concrete floor, and we future-proofed the plumbing. So put the plumbing in, make sure it goes in, and she bought a lot of the materials, and that came in quite cost-effective. The idea being that when you saved your money, you could add to it as you live in it. So I don't know if you saw one of the images. There was literally a house where there was a bed in it with sandbags. That was one of the images before we started talking about the indigenous practices, and that was that shack. So someone lived in it whilst we incrementally added to it. So she could save 3,000 rand a month, and she then used that 3,000 every month to add to it. And so then you could plaster in time, you could put a bathroom in time. So that's what you can do. And obviously, what we're trying to advocate for this tender is you get a single story property, and through the tender process. And then because we've done training with the humans on the ground and because they can save, we would then advocate for taking the roof off, building another frame, and then carrying on. And again, that would be an incremental model of change. So that's a wider story of money, because at the end of the day, if you invest the money, it stays there and it's part of your investment. But it's not as cheap as government housing, because we don't like government housing, but it's cheaper than conventional building, i.e. like the double skin brick. So yeah, I'm hoping that answers the question. Chris, what do you think?
Yes, it does. I think it really does. Okay, another question closely to that is the labor. Tisetso was just mentioning as he was speaking that there was six of them building that kitchen. Um, if six people on the ground can do the work, what's the largest labor you've ever required to build with Sandbag?
Well, you just saw a video in Cholocho in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
That was about 60 humans. I counted 60 humans. But that wouldn't happen in Cape Town. All of those people were volunteering. All of those people, we would eat together, we would build together, we would sing and we would dance and we would do all the things, but they weren't getting paid because they could understand that this was the community build, an ECD that was going to benefit the whole community. That's a paradigm that doesn't really exist here in this context. And ultimately, what we would do in a place like an informal community, like in Philippi, if we get active with what we're talking about in terms of Sweet Home Farm, we would do a cluster of 4 units, and that would be a team. And then there would be another cluster of 4, and there would be another team. And it would be about 6 people, 6 to 8 people. So we would have to work that out as we go along. But yeah, we would try and, but I know that if you had 6 people working and they were getting employed to do that, guaranteed there would be a cousin, an auntie, an uncle or a friend, or a child, a Kwetin, Abantwana, who would get involved and they would build, like Karis Lily, 5 years old Karis Lily. I think the humans will get involved. And that's what I want to test in the community, just to see to what extent people would get involved. So yeah, it does fluctuate. Obviously, when we did Mshiniwam, we built 2 semi-detached shacks in Mshiniwam, and we counted 15 humans were involved in the building of that, either filling bags or guys on the ground or specialist, plumbers from the community. So yeah, we try and encourage as many people as possible. That's not Chris. That's
Hi,
not Chris.
Harry. I actually have one question. I hear that you are having projects in countries like Zimbabwe, and like Stizo has been saying, we are having a challenge of trying to convince people to get to use sandbags. So I want to ask you, what does Ubu do in terms of trying to lobby for projects of sandbags? Or do you just wait maybe for tenders to come up and then try to tender and introduce the new technology of sandbags? Or do you write more like proposal urging them to use this method? Because this is what we have been trying to do, and I think it's very tricky in our country. So I want to know what do you do to try to get that big projects?
We haven't really tried to get big projects. So the tender came up because sandbags were kind of specifically mentioned in the tender, and we knew that it was coming, and we knew that we wanted to be a part of that. But a lot of other projects have literally just come from interest. A lot of projects have come from training. If someone comes and does a training day, so if you've got people that have got problems in Lesotho, we will do a training. And there's something about the training day which people then go, oh, right, this is basic, this is simple. That's a thing. Training has become a very important part of basically a part of our marketing. And a lot of guys have then gone away and said, I can do this for myself. And the reason why they were keen just because they knew that they would be doing it. So it's not watching an expert do it, they can do it. And that's a very, very important part of this process. So everyone thinks about the technology, they think about the attributes, they want to know what the cost is and all that stuff, but there's something very joyful and there's something very activating about you getting involved for yourself. Yeah, it's very important. And so doing a training. So if you're in Lesotho, we can encourage like training days, and we will provide you with the documentation. And if you can, you know, what we try and do in Ubu is we would have theory in the morning, we would drink coffee, we'd have theory, we can go through the document, and then in the afternoon we make frames and we fill bags, and we get people making up a mock wall, and you know, and hitting the sandbags, and people love it. And that's a very important part of the process. Once someone realizes, so we can, I'm fairly convinced that we can convince any community member to say yes to this. And that's why as well, we've had to build in holiday homes and all that sort of stuff. We also had 2 retired architects from the United States come over, because one of them lives on a reservation in Arizona. And you look at some of the photos, it's just sand. And so if there is sand, we've got a guy in Namibia now who wants to build developments in Namibia. And the reason why is because they've got so much sand. This is not a great technology if you've got no sand. Like, you know, in Cholocho, they're on the edge of the Kalahari, which is very, very good. But if you went to Durban, for instance, I wouldn't advocate for sand because there's not much sand, and they have a different type of soil. And you'd actually have a very good opportunity to do solid massy bricks using clay bricks, and that's a totally different technology, like a rammed earth sort of idea. But we wouldn't advocate for that. So, and I've always thought about Lesotho because ultimately it's like, well, is there any sand? Not really. But then you have to ship in everything anyway. So what are you shipping in? So let's have that conversation. Because the analogy we always use is like, what have you got in your hands? What is there available? And so that's why we use sand, because right now where we are based in the Western Cape and obviously in other areas, it's available. And so that's why we use it. But if you want to get things energized, I would always encourage people to come to a training event, and we can help you set that up.
All right. I do understand. It's kind of a pity because we tried to have talks. Your friend.
Where is that guy? Where is he?
He's at work right now. We tried to have talks to talk to you, like maybe so that we can plan how we can have a lot of conversations between us as Millennium Construction Group and Ubu. But we had challenges. But I think we will sort that out. I want to understand. Do you think last year I was in this competition of the United Nations, the UNDP in Lesotho. So there's someone that who said to me, you know, to have this kind of technology be introduced in your country, you have maybe you have to have someone who's behind you, like someone like Ubu, who you are saying you are guaranteeing us that he will come and assist you in everything that he can do. So this is why I say we try to have talks to talk to you, but I think the communications wasn't clear. So
yeah, I think the thing is that we've got to understand expectations, and we've got to understand mission, and you know what it is that you are trying to do. And if what is needed is for me to get on an airplane to come to Maseru again, then I will absolutely do that, because I love the spirit that, you know, Ram and Chokes, all those guys, I love that spirit. And there's it's about finding each other and making relations, but understanding what your mission is, and sometimes you have to take a bit more time to understand that, because, you know, it's a different context. It's not Cape Town. So it also requires me to understand, what it is that the mission is, what are we trying to do, and actually also not being intimidated to start small and to start slow. Don't be intimidated. Like, it doesn't have to be this big tender. We're going to build 200 units. It's not about that. You can help the engagement process. You can help the marketing process by doing one little project. And as you do that project, you invite everyone. You invite local councillors. You invite, and it's kind of what we did with the kitchen. You just have to keep on doing it. This is an alternative building technology, and people don't like alternative things. I'm bashing up against a brick wall all the time. There's a human in this room called Renee August. I hope it's the same Renee that I know. And she's going to be building a house in Muizenberg here. Really just to show that we can build in the suburbs. And trying to build an alternative technology in the suburbs in the 21st century. Because there is still this obsession with cement and concrete blocks and bricks, and it's just like, we want to queer that, and we want to challenge it, because we are living in a different world, and cement is a problem. Cement is a major problem.
Oh, thank you. Can you please leave me your email so that I would like to share with you what we
All
have
of those
achieved
guys have
and
got
what
my
the
email. Oh,
challenges.
I can put it in the chat. I can put it in the
Yeah,
chat.
and the challenges that we face so that we can talk this through. Yeah,
There's my email in the chat.
thank you.
Okay, that was interesting. Thank you so much, Perry. I had just one last question. I don't know if anyone in the chat has another question. I have just one question. What have you identified to be the biggest challenge when building with this technology of sandbags and eco beams?
The biggest challenge. I think it's about mindsets. We're trying to get into the psyche of notional humanity, of the human being. We want to be seen, we want to be understood, we want to belong, we want to be part of something. Community matters, all of these things. And when we talk about this technology, it does all that, which is why I quite enjoy it, because it brings people to the table. But in order to get to that place, something else has to still shift, because you still got to get someone in a room, you still got to get someone on a training day, or and so that's what we keep on trying to do. We keep on trying to advocate for it. One of the things that we're trying to do now is go to SACAP, South African's Council for Architectural Profession, and get CPD accredited training, to try and get the right types of professionals in the room to do the advocacy. So, and again, it's just continuous advocacy. Just keep on trying, keep pushing, keep talking. Because the people that have been exposed to it love it. It's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. I'm not perfect. Chokes isn't perfect. Ram is very close to being perfect. But he has moments where he's not perfect. And the technology isn't this perfect square thing. It's a bit rounded. It's a bit, you have to play with it a little bit. And I love that, because it's a bit like humans. And you just have to continually do the advocacy. Because otherwise we carry on building like we always have. And certain people in a particular city like this city, when people build with that technology, it dehumanizes. It makes people sick. It gets built for them. And so they should be grateful for what they've been given. And it's like, no, we have to turn this around. We have to turn this around. You build. You must build. It's hard work. Do the building, do the work. But then you look around and you go, look at what I've done. Amazing. Oh, look, there's a fire next door. What happened? Nothing. Nothing happened. Nothing burned. Can you imagine a shack when it burns? 9 shacks burn. We need to stop that. When it burns, let's stop that so that everything else stays where it is. It's basic things. And we will talk about, so the tender that we talked about in 2016, we just said, and we talked about it with Sarah, is like go in with a small team, activate those around you, and let's build together. That's what we talked about in 2016. It's what we talked about in 2021, 22, tender in 23. So what we hope to model. Nothing is going to change. Just activate humans to self-build places of belonging.
I was gonna wrap up, but Tiseto has one last question, if you allow that.
No, 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 no.
Go ahead.
What's the question, Tiseto? What's the question? Can't hear you.
I'm struggling to do it's when we try to prepare the BOQ, like the bill of a house. Like here in Lesotho, sand is expensive. It's unlike there from at Cape Town, because here we buy sand. It's not like we go there and take sand. So we are struggling there on how to convince people, because they're saying, if I'm saying I'm gonna use this much sand, then when you cost it and try to find the price of it, it's too expensive, because sandbag is cheaper if you go there and take the sand which is already there. So that's a problem that we're having. Even in a small house, when we try to cost it, its prices goes high.
Yeah, well, that's a problem. That is a problem. And so the question we ask is not, do we use sand? The question we ask is, what do you have? What is available? What is at your fingertips? So the same concept is, what is around me? What can I use? So we can explore that. I'd be very interested to know, because I don't think I recall from the BOQ details the actual cube cost in Lesotho. I'd be very interested to know what that is, and we can have a conversation about that. And I can continue talking with jokes, but it's like you have to just say, well, is it the right technology if there's no sand? And if it isn't sand, is there an equivalent? Is there something else we can use? Is there river sand? You know, is that type of thing? Because obviously you don't have any beaches, but is there river sand? But if you are getting sand, where's it coming from? And it'll be very interesting to know the cube price for sand coming across the border, if you have to get it from South Africa. Are we talking about getting it from South Africa, Tiseto?
It's expensive. Like I was trying to see how can I reduce the cost, because it's quite expensive. If now I cost 12 cubic of sand, because sand here it's like 1,500
For a cube?
like for no 3 cubic.
For 3 cubes is 1.5.
Yes.
Yeah, that's quite expensive. That is expensive. So yeah, so that's why you have to say, well, is it the right technology? You have to say, well, you have to ask the difficult question. Because if you have to ship everything in, then it might not be. But what would be the equivalent? That's what I would be interested to explore with you. What would be the equivalent thing which is close to hand, accessible? The sand that we did on the kitchen Are we assuming that that all came from over the border? Is that right? Is that so?
No, we didn't get from out of the border. We priced it. We
But that
did
was
price it.
Did it come from local? Was it locally sourced?
Yes, it was ours. The sand.
Yeah. Well, that's a different kettle of fish, then. That makes it different. I think what we need to do is you get your team together, definitely Chokes. And is Ram involved in it, or is he separate to that?
He's separate to that.
So get Chokes and your team, and let's set up a Zoom, and let's have that conversation.
Okay.
Let's carry on that conversation, yeah?
Thank you.
Plus, I just want to see the faces. Good stuff. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Yes, thank you so much, Renee. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us. I know we went a bit over the time we said would go through. It's 15 minutes after 2 now. We're initially supposed to end at 2, but the conversation and the interaction was very interesting. Thank you so much for uh, your presentation, Mr. Luis. Hopefully, we'll still engage you some more because we saw that there's interest. People really are curious to know about this. Every time we made a post on social media, people wanted to know, well, how do I do that? What's the cost? How challenging it is? How environmentally friendly it is? The climate changes. All those we've seen the interest, and now we want to build momentum on that. Maybe like you were saying earlier, even to just bring you this side to host maybe a workshop, a training or some sort on this would really be also valuable. But we'll definitely engage more on that, and we really appreciate you making this time in your very busy schedule. I believe, Mr. Berry, but I really appreciate your time. And yeah, even to the guys, they have learned so much from you, but clearly there's still more hunger to hear more from you. So as you already made them aware, you can continue to engage with them on this on another platform. Any last words before we close off?
Let's keep talking.
Yeah, all right.
Building relations is more important than building buildings.
Yes, definitely.
And it's imperative if we're going to try and work out what the best ways of building. So it's not just building products that look good and look nice. It's about engaging in the process of building and the process of making. And that's a critical part.
Nice, definitely. All right. Thank you very much, everyone who attended, especially our followers on Facebook, on our Facebook Live. Thank you so much for even your questions. Thank you for joining us today. Please join us again next time. For the next 2 months, we'll be having lectures. The next lecture will be on the 25th of July. We have a lecture which will be presented by Mr. Frank Massenholler, who's an architect from Germany. He will be talking to us about building with soil and clay. I heard Mr. Berry mentioning it a little in his presentation, so we'll hear more about it next month, this month actually, on the 25th of July. So yeah, and then more to look forward to. Please follow us on our social media. We'll be sharing this presentation also on our YouTube, so make sure that you go on our YouTube channel for updates and all those videos. Thank you so much, guys. Till we meet again next time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Right.